Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind, Season 5, The Reunion. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. As I always say, you don't use YouTube as a replacement for therapy. If you need a therapist, get one. You deserve it. Even if you are a cast member on the show, don't use me on YouTube as a replacement for therapy. You deserve a therapist, as we all do. Let's watch.
Are you two still together?
With that reaction, obviously not.
Okay.
It doesn't always end in fairy tale, and it just didn't work out.
Okay, so we're learning that they're not together. It's not a huge deal, really, because most dating relationships don't last very long. It's hard to find the one, right? I guess I'm curious as to what happened. Maybe we'll hear it. Let's find out.
That weekend was my birthday weekend. Chris had a wedding out of state, so the next week I didn't see him. I found out the following weekend that Chris was seeing someone else.
Interesting. So I don't know if this is what it's related to, but someone sent me some sort of TikTok video or something of Chris dancing with some other woman at a wedding. So was it that wedding?
And yeah, I never saw him again.
Are you saying he started seeing someone else without breaking things off with you? Is that what you're saying?
What? Chris? I mean, we knew you had to have had a flaw, but that's a doozy. You just ghosted her? Wow. Well, still, at any level, it's bad. But if you think about the extent of their relationship, it's still bad. But the extent of their because we're used to seeing couples on the show that are serious, right? But they met up after the pods, and we don't know how many times they even saw each other. We only saw them together at that party. So they literally could have only had one date or two or three or something, and then he leaves. But still, Chris, come on. Just something. Just call her at the very least.
Nodding, Chris, do you agree that that's how it went down?
That is how it went down, and I didn't handle the situation as someone would properly.
Interesting. So a couple options. I'll try to predict. Or I don't know if we're going to hear anything, but there's a possibility that his niceness or his goodness has a shadow side, which is that he is also terrified of disappointing people and therefore will do things like this, which ultimately is the opposite of nice.
But I did find someone who I now live with and I love, and we're very happy together, and I'm sorry if that hurts.
Yeah, I was, the way her head sort of jerked, I was like, oh, I think that's the first time she's hearing it. Well, I mean, this was a year and a half ago, so it's not a strange thing that he has a partner. Or wait, did her head turn because he's revealing that he met someone that at that wedding? Was that the woman that he was dancing with? Still, Chris... Infidelity, I mean, who knows? Maybe they didn't have an exclusive relationship, but they did have a relationship. So I was going to say, are we going to add infidelity to the list here as well? But we don't know if they had an exclusive relationship.
So in that process, did you feel at any point you should let Johnny know before she found out? I guess I'm trying to put the pieces together, because that party in Houston, you were all in for her. You had her back. And then
yeah, he could have just been thinking, look, there's a lot of things going on, and I just don't want to get into other people's... the way he was approaching it, she kind of has crazy eyes there. The way it looks to us, it's that, yeah, he's all in. But there's another possibility where he was like, he just had one toe and thus didn't really care that much. He's like, everyone seems upset, but I don't know. I'm not banking on Johnny and I working out, so I guess we'll wait and see. I'm not that invested in this situation. Or what? Who knows? We don't know Chris. We don't know Chris. We're getting to know him. This is interesting to hear.
Yeah, you were vigorously defending her at that party. It was really kind of admirable, you know?
Well,
Thank you for that.
I'm always going to defend the people that I love, and I loved you, and that doesn't change who I love now and who I'm with now. But
okay, let's get to why you ghosted her. Why did you? Okay, you loved her. Why did you ghost her?
it was a lot of stress for me, and we went opposite ways.
Well, I think you went an opposite way, and then...
Well,
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't think it was funny until Izzy started laughing. It is kind of funny. Well, I mean, you went an opposite way. She was there. She was there to stay.
You were like the nicest man. I wanted to come through the screen and hug you, but I'm just wanting to understand after the party. Like Nick said, you were vigorously
I'm glad she's doubling down because he didn't really answer the question. So this is something that I run into as a therapist. Actually, it's something I run into as a professor and as a supervisor. I will be instructing and supervising trainees on how to be a therapist, and the trainee, the supervisee, the intern, will have a fantastic question that they might have even planned before the session. It's like, they really come out with this question. It's like, ugh. And almost all the time, clients will not answer it directly. If it's a good question, it often will challenge the client, not in a confrontational way necessarily, but it'll touch on something that is difficult for them, which I think this is for him. He's ashamed, I think. He should be ashamed. And so some people get upset at me when I say that shame is sometimes functional, because I think in our society, we equate shame with self-hatred and low self-worth. That's not the uses of shame that I'm using. People say, what's the difference between guilt and shame? It depends on the definition or the working definition that you're using. To me, guilt is I feel bad for something I did. Shame is more like I feel bad for a part of my personality. I don't feel bad for my entire personality, but I feel bad for a tendency that I have. It's like, oh no, there's that thing. I'm now having to reckon with that reality that I'm not perfect and I have flaws and I have an ongoing issue that a lot of people have told me have hurt them. You know what I mean? So that's all I mean. But it's all just linguistics. Maybe I should just use the word guilt so I don't trigger people. But for him, he should feel guilty. He should feel bad for what he did. And so he feels guilty. So he's avoiding the question, just like with clients, that they will do stuff like that too. I don't want to give the impression that good therapy is somehow confronting clients. I'm trying to think of a good example. Another category of this is a good question in therapy, particularly in the beginning, would be an assessment question. You might ask a client, like if a couple comes into your office and they have a lot of conflict, you might ask them, so when you were fighting about this thing last night, how did you feel in the moment? What emotion were you feeling? Almost all the time, people, even other therapists, I have clients that are therapists that will still answer in a way that is not answering the question. They won't actually identify an emotion. They will identify a cognition or a sentence, and they'll say, well, I was feeling like my spouse was being a jerk, and I was totally flabbergasted with what they did to me. That's not an emotion, right? And that's fine, and people answer questions the way that they do. My point is that the trainee will give up on the question because the question didn't work, and I will just hammer into their heads that you will never get a satisfying answer on a first question, particularly if the question is good. So she asked a good question. He didn't answer it. Now she's asking again. And it's particularly satisfying because that almost never happens on these shows, whether it's 90 Day Fiancé or whatever. They'll ask a question, it'll be good, and I'll be like, yay, and then we just won't get an answer, and it'll be obvious they didn't answer the question, and no one will follow up with it. So this is good. Let's see what he says.
And you just said, I will always defend those I love. But if I may, would you cheat on those you love?
Apparently, yes. It's terrible. I know I was wrong. I mean, I felt guilty and heartbroken and as many emotions as I could because I did fall in love with you.
Okay. I'm waiting. Maybe he just doesn't know what's wrong with him. That would be weird. Can you hear the bird now? There's a single bird that's holding out, that last summer bird that is still looking for a mate or food or just trying to bother me. I could close the windows. So full disclosure, I really wanted to wear one of my Seattle flannels, and I didn't have the windows open at first, and it was a little hot, so I opened the windows. I'm pathetic. Okay, so what would really be satisfying is if he said, I have a problem where I avoid, and or I have a problem where I am so guilty. When I feel guilt, then I hide or I beat myself up and or I was worried I was going to lose my partner because if I reached out to Johnny, then, my partner back then, because of the way things are going, I'm just waiting for some other reason as to why he would do that.
It's a terrible, terrible thing to do. Probably one of my biggest regrets is not being forthcoming with you. I've apologized before, and I continuously apologize.
Just apologize.
Johnny,
Okay, so he apologized. Was it months and months later that he apologized?
how did you find out that this was even happening?
My friend saw him with the other girl and told me. I think I blamed myself still a little.
That's rough. That's rough. That's rough. Given what I think Johnny suffers from, that is rough. To find out like that, that's traumatic. Because it's one thing to be dumped, that's rough. But to find out through the grapevine that the whole thing is a sham, even if he did love her or care about her, to find out that way, of course you would conclude there's a strong possibility he never loved her and never cared about her, that she is nothing. And also for him to still be with this woman, which is, of course, his right, of course, but for her to think, well, what's wrong with me? We had something, and I thought we had a thing together, and now the next, it'd be one thing if he met someone and they just dated for a few weeks. Another thing, it's like you feel like you're always second. It makes you wonder about Johnny and Izzy. Right? It just makes you want, although, I don't know. So, yeah, that's rough for her. Oh, that's heartbreaking. And then I wonder, so if she found out right away, which seems likely, then did she reach out to him, or did he find out that Johnny knew soon after that and he just was like, oh, I cheated on her and what do I do? And then that's why he avoided. Then he's also thinking, well, she knows, so there's no real practical reason why I have to talk with her.
My fault. You don't need to. That's not you. She really, as she just said,
God, and then you think about the way Stacy and Izzy treated her. You just think, there was that one bit of time when she was talking crap about Stacy and a little bit Izzy in the lounge and the pods, but it just breaks, especially the way she reacts to things at the party when Stacy and Izzy were bullying her. I don't think that's a wrong usage of that term. And then, because she was just like, she had fought back kind of, but it was mainly just her being, what am I trying to defend herself? And then she starts crying and it's happening again. I just think, and I just remember that first interview with her. She said that she's had a lot of bad relationships, and her mom told her that she maybe should never have kids. Not that, according to her mom did say you might not have kids because you want to be in a stable relationship or that sort of thing, and you don't really know. She told her she should not have kids. Presumably she wants to have kids, and to be told that, right? It's not just kids, which of course is a huge thing. It's like you're this other kind of human. You're not good enough. You are broken. There's something wrong with you. You're doomed just because of who you are. That's what it felt like, what she was saying. And I think there's a part of her that does have self-esteem, but I think there's another part of her that doesn't. And then to have all this stuff happen, it's heartbreaking.
one of my biggest faults that I continuously try to work through is telling people news they don't want to hear. And it sounds good, like I don't want to say bad things to somebody, but it doesn't work.
Okay. You're redeeming yourself a little bit, Chris. Bad Chris, but good Chris for saying that. He's saying he learned a lesson that he has a hard time telling people news that they don't want to hear, and so he's trying to work on that. And that can go a long way with people in Johnny's position. It's like, because we don't usually see that. And to have someone that's like, not only did I transgress upon you, and not only am I sorry and I feel guilty, but I am actually going to work on this. And then the person proceeds to work on it. It's like reparation. I mean, who knows what Johnny feels about it, but if I were in Johnny's shoes, that would go a long way, because the fact that he is pushing himself out of his comfort zone because he felt bad of what he did to me, that shows that he cares about my feelings. And also, I would feel good that he wouldn't be doing that to other people. You know, that's a huge deal. So often with apologies, it's all words. It's all, I'm taking responsibility instead of actions.
I don't know. Maybe gonna ease his way out.
There's no plan.
Yeah.
It was just, I love this girl, and I'm, you know.
Yeah.
Why were you blaming yourself, Johnny?
Because I wish I had seen the process through. I didn't have to end things with Chris in the pods. I could have just...
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that there'd be a lot of time for her to contemplate that what if, right? Because if she had, if she had, they would have likely been engaged, and then given the way the two of them are, they probably would have been fine-ish, enough anyway, during the getaway and whatnot. And there's a pretty good chance they would have said yes at the end. And it would be logical for her to conclude that Chris might have been tentative around Johnny and more open to meeting someone at a wedding because of having gone through the pain of that breakup, right? And then also hearing the stuff with Izzy and everything. It just seems like you would think that. Yeah, that's pretty tough.
I take accountability for not putting him first originally. He was really hurt by the whole experiment. I think we both have found our people now and are happy.
So you are now seeing someone, Johnny.
Yeah, we've been dating for about a year now.
Okay, so I guess all's well that ends well. So I'm curious as to how her relationship is going to go, given what she said about her past. Okay, so if you want to support what we're doing here, the best thing you can do is becoming a YouTube member or a patron on Patreon. But since you're on YouTube right now, you could become a member of this channel. By becoming a member, you are literally paying my bills so that I can dedicate more time, and the time that I already spend on this channel, which I enjoy. I like doing it anyway, but it means that I am able to spend more time on it, I guess, or at least get compensated for it. But even if you just watch these videos and sit through a couple ads, that usually is something, and which is, more than enough. It's just a great thing that you're just watching, regardless of what else you're doing. But if you can become a YouTube member, it'd be great. And you get access to YouTube member exclusive content that I have already made and will make in the future. I'm working on Taylor Swift documentary reaction videos. I'm working on a bunch of things that people voted on. I'm forgetting exactly what it was. But, if you care to, and everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.